Hey, once again, I'm back here rooted in Erie at Stan's Garden Center, and I'm here to talk about something that is extremely rewarding in the garden industry as far as your house, as far as commercial area, and that's turf grass. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, full disclosure, I got a D in turf grass in college because it was so much more diverse of a topic, so much more in-depth than I thought. I thought maybe I could skip a few classes. It's grass, right? It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. And I'm going to turn that into a simple lesson. You're not going to get a D when we're done with this lesson today. It's really simple. There's a few things that you really might want to change in your habits with growing grass that's going to change everything about your turf grass management at your residence, your commercial facility, whatever. And we're going to start right from the root of the problem, and that is the actual soil itself. So when you apply grass, whether it's a new turf grass area or whether it is an area that has existing grass that you want to kind of improve the density, or if you want to kind of fill in or patch, if you will, that soil is extremely important in the sense that when a seed germinates, it needs certain conditions. It's going to need a little bit of warm ground. Okay, if it's too early in the season, it's still really cold nights, that warm ground is not going to get that seed to ignite. The first thing that ignites when that seed comes out is the radicle. The radicle is the first little white root hair that comes out, and it has to have somewhere to go. So if you have hard pack and you think, well, I'm going to invest now, seed is pretty costly. It's a very expensive investment in your landscape. And if you're going to put down that expensive seed, you want it to ignite to the greatest percentage. Okay, a lot of times folks will come in and they'll say to me, this seed was no good, I need a refund or something. By law, it's tested and inspected, and there's a percentage on the seed itself. Every package will have a percentage, 89, 91, 93, whatever percentage of seed is viable or living in that package. It's almost always the conditions that occur after that seed hits the ground. And one of the most common mistakes is they don't have that nice loose earth for that radicle, that root hair to come out and go into. So first lesson, if you're going to add to existing turf, you got to go and add a little bit of loose sandy soil, or maybe thatch it and get that scratched up, or put a little bit down right over top dressing, we'll call it, of something that radicle can go down into. If you're just broadcasting seed out into hard pack, it's really going to ignite at a very poor percentage to almost non-existent. So that's the same thing for new turf grass. You'll see a lot of folks have that, it's all raked out nice and neat and smooth so that you don't hit stones with your lawnmower on the first mow. But that loose soil is important. So if you go and roll it nice and tight, or if it's not been rototilled, or you haven't added new topsoil, that's necessary so that the greatest percentage of that highly costly seed gets to root down in, and then after the root ignites into the soil, then you're going to see the cotyledon. I know it sounds like a vocabulary word test, but the cotyledon is the very first leaves that come out. So monocot is corn, grass, anything with that bladey look, because the first thing that comes out is one little strand. One strand, that's your grass. Everything else in the plant world, they're going to be dicots. Okay, I'm giving you this lesson because we're going to also talk about controlling the weeds in your grass. And a monocot and a dicot, they're two families in the plants that are very important. So remember that lesson as we're going forward. Couple tools to the trade here. The seed that you're going to use is somewhat important. And a very common mix is sun and shade. And what the sun and shade mix is that it will kind of adapt itself to that conditioner. Maybe you have dappled light. You have some existing larger trees that it gets sun speckled through the day. Sun and shade has a percentage of blades of grass that thrive in hot, direct sunlight, all the way to more casual, cooler temperatures. That would be some of the fescues, the finer mixes. You have Kentucky bluegrass and perennial rye that you'll find in the mixes that will thrive in more direct sun. Some of the mixes, like Kentucky bluegrass, are the only seeds in the mix that will fill in. So if you get a little gouge from the snowplow or something, those are the grass varieties that tend to fill in or thicken on their own. So I'm a Pittsburgh fan. Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium is entirely bluegrass, and that kind of fixes it as the week grows on. That creeps in. So they'll come in and patch a little bit. It's a lot of Kentucky bluegrass that gives it that ability to fill in after a football game. So the mix that you use, if you have dense shade, you're gonna have a lot of fescues. So you pick the variety on the shelf that is going to be more ideal for your conditions. If you have an area next to a concrete driveway, lots of heat, lots of sun, maybe occasional getting driven on, you wanna pick something more durable, like a full sun or a drought-resistant mix. All that should be available on whatever garden center you're choosing from. You should have a mix of different seeds. So you'll also want to cover new seed. And why is that? The second ingredient, I talked about loose soil, loose earth for that root to go down into. The next thing that is absolutely critical to the life of that seed becoming coming into fruition and getting the blade and then getting its second set of leaves that will make your good strong turf grasses water. When that seed goes down on that loose soil, it cannot dry out. This is probably the most critical thing that happens to folks when they come in and say, I put this very expensive grass seed down, but it didn't ignite. It didn't turn into grass. Nothing came up. It almost always is the case where that radical ignites and you don't see it. You don't know that the first thing in that seed that wakes up is a little white root hair. And then while you're at work or a hot sunny day or early in the morning, you went somewhere and didn't expect to be gone so long and you didn't get to water, or you paid no attention to water at all. That's the point kind of to this education side, is that you need to make sure that that seed never dries out. It's not the volume of water. You don't need to put down 1,000 gallons of water. You just need to keep that first inch moist. So I set timers when I put in a large area of turf grass, and that first layer of soil stays moist all the time because I'll run it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes every couple hours. I'll go and turn the spigot off if we have a rainy day. It's not keeping it totally dripping saturated so you got muddy shoes, but it's the matter of keeping that nice white root hair alive until the grass gets a root system down into that loose soil we just talked about. 2 ingredients, loose soil, and has to stay wet. So one of the tools to doing that is mulch. And a lot of times you see the price of seed right now, you want to skimp on the mulch and say, I don't want that straw. I don't want that hydro seed mulch. I don't want anything covering it. It's just another expense. I don't need that. I can keep it going without it. And that's the biggest mistake as far as the water side goes, because that's providing protection from the direct sun to that earth. It's protecting the seed itself, gives it a little bit of shade while it's young. Young seedlings are kind of like infants, lots of care when they're young, and then they get more and more independent as that turf grass gets older. So the mulch is not the thing to skimp on, because that's what's giving you a lot more hours in the day to protect from that wind and the sun and the birds, to make sure that that costly seed ignites into that soil. And then your young little youthful grass blades come up, your cotyledons come up and establish. So loose soil, constant moisture, and your mulch, those are the things that are extremely important to getting that turf grass to establish. One thing you'll find about fertilizers, we're going to move on to some of the feed and control products here, so stay tuned. But one thing you will not find in the vast majority of all turf grass managing fertilizers is phosphorus. Phosphorus is the middle number. So if you look at the numbers on fertilizer, say you have 5, 10, 5. Say those are the numbers you're looking at the fertilizer. That 10, that middle number is phosphorus. And phosphorus is one thing for grass that drives a nice aggressive root system. When you first put in turf grass, you want it to get nice and thick. You want this nice, beautiful carpet. In order to do that, you have to have a strong bottom in order to have a very strong and colorful top. And that phosphorus is commonly found in starter fertilizers. Starter fertilizers have that middle number, that phosphorus. It's a very expensive element to put into fertilizer, and it's been very much controlled by how much we're putting out there in the world in the fertilizer and green industry, because it's also one of the agitators to causing the algae blooms in the waterways. So we're very conscious not to get too much phosphorus out into the the runoff into the creeks and streams and such, because that's what's causing waterway damage. So the starter fertilizer has been encapsulated. It has been coated so that it releases those elements over a long, slow time. Why is that? That's so that we don't pollute the waterways, and so that it gives this fertilizer to this young plant in a controlled environment. Small dose over a long period of time, so the starter fertilizer is safe. When you're using it for starting a new lawn or going ahead and thickening up your existing lawn, that little addition of slow fertilizer of phosphorus. Very, very important. Stay tuned because we're going to talk about in our next episode, we're going to talk about control products, fertilization, the 4 steps of the Scott's product, how to stop the dreaded crabgrass and to control the weeds as your season goes on. So if you've struggled with controlling things you don't want in this nice turf grass you started, stay tuned.